Hey everyone, Luke Ford here, your moral leader, and I'm here with Helen and Joey Kurtzman, and the parsha this week is Chayyei, which is in Genesis. Chayyei is to do with the death of Sarah, Abraham's wife, and the mother of Isaac, and that's what we'll be talking about. And Joey's going to be leading out. He'll be our fearless leader with Helen. This is just after the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, and Abraham took Isaac up a hill and bound him to an altar and was about to sacrifice him when God said, "Stay your knife," and they sacrificed a ram instead. So Joey says he actually read the parsha this time before joining in with the discussion. And so normally he just likes to wing it because he feels like his chakras are more open that way.
Right. You don't want any preconceived notions like the text or anything.
And I need to make an announcement on the website of the wonderful things that we are doing here live in the chat room so that we can have people come in. Joey, what did you think of that? I sent you an essay. I think I also sent it to Helen. I don't know if you read it also. The discussion that what American Jewish literature needs is good readers.
Yeah.
Joey, did you see that?
I
did you read
did.
it, Helen?
I read that.
I think all literature needs good readers.
Yeah.
At this point.
It's true, but at the same time, the author seemed to think that specifically that this was a problem for Jewish literature. And I really, my initial reaction was that he was saying that we need more enlightened culture, and that the reason that we have a poverty of good readers is because our culture is not enlightened enough. And I think that's really a crock.
Chicken and egg, though. I mean.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, like Virginia Woolf that was an issue that Virginia Woolf was grappling with in the 20s.
Right.
And I feel like every generation sort of looks out and says, you know, why has our collective sort of IQ plummeted?
Totally. I mean,
maybe not.
No. I think you're right. I
maybe
think the creative class always.
That wasn't the case.
Well, no. I think the creative class always looks out and sees lots of heathen, and then they look back at the books they're reading from previous ages and written, and they assume, well, this is what it was like to live in the 19th century, and this is what it was like, and back then people were cultured. Well, of course that's not true.
No.
It was a very unrepresentative slice of that time, and now I think that we have a more knowledge and learning are more broadly distributed now than at any time in human history. So I think we have as enlightened a culture as has ever been. So if Jewish literature specifically is hurting, I think the problem is that the concerns of Jewish writers are remote from the concerns of most enlightened people.
And that's because, as a collective group, I think Jews have, for a little while now, and are still at this moment going through a bit of an identity crisis. And that's why we're sort of, I think, moving a little bit away from the way that we've identified for decades.
Right.
And trying to figure out, well, if that's not how we're going to identify, who the hell are we?
Then who are we?
And, that's a big question for writers and thinkers. And
it is. I mean, in a way, it should be fodder for great literature, but
and it probably will prove to be.
It probably will.
And then the readers will be there.
And right. I guess
if you rate it, they will read.
That's the take home for me, is that you produce that.
If you read it, they will rate.
If you produce that a great literature, it will attract great readers. I mean, yeah. So I think the problem is probably intrinsic to the Jewish community and the Jewish writers rather than to anything that's lacking in culture at large. But it's also so... forget it. Close on that. So if you want me to...
Yeah, you got any thoughts on this week's Torah portion, Joey?
You'll be surprised to hear that I do.
Wow.
I don't know. I read Rashi this week because I was really trying to peacock for Emma, who I don't even know if she's in the audience this time, but
She'll be watching the
She'll
replay.
watch the vid.
Emma, I read Rashi just for you, honey, and I think it was Rashi who said that, you know, we just finished with the Akedah, the binding and near sacrifice of Isaac, and then this portion begins with Sarah's death, and apparently, according to some commentators, that's no coincidence that she died as a result of the Akedah. That when learning that Abraham had been prepared to sacrifice Sarah's son, she died, and I guess for me, I'm just struck again, as we were in the last portion, by the consistency with which Abraham doesn't seem to factor Sarah's wishes into his behavior, whether it's, you know, pimping her off to Abimelech, or deciding unilaterally to kill their son. You know, these are the things you consult a wife about normally, I think.
But Abraham's talking to God. Why does he need to talk to Sarah?
Well, because I think that a good marriage involves, at the very least, communication over big decisions, like the murder of a child, and I think that's something you talk about. Even if he doesn't think her opinion matters, she ought to know. I don't think she should find out afterwards, like, honey, I'm home. What'd you do today? Oh, I was gonna sacrifice Isaac up on Mount Moriah, but I changed my mind. That's not a good. That's the way in which Abraham is supposed to embody pure love. He is not a good model for us Jewish men, I think, in that respect.
So do you think that the tentative, almost sacrifice of Isaac that perhaps is what killed Sarah?
Yes, that's what I can't remember now whether it was in Rashi or a different commentary, but yes, some authoritative commentators have claimed that was exactly the case. That killed Sarah.
Helen, do you want to jump in?
Well, it's interesting to think about that in the context of in light of what happens at the end of the portion, when Abraham dies.
Mm-hmm.
Because despite the fact that he wills everything to Isaac, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Abraham dies, Isaac and Ishmael come together in what appears to be peace to bury him. So I feel like there might be a connection between the importance of even in a complicated family order like this, the importance of family and the importance of these relationships, and of trying to cultivate peace and come together when it's important. And I just wonder if there might be a connection there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because my understanding is that it talks about the happiness of Abraham's older years and how he died happy and satisfied, and I've heard it said that that's because Ishmael and Isaac reconciled.
Mm-hmm.
That is what allowed him to have that kind of those happy golden years. So yeah, I mean, certainly, you know, if that's true, then it's a real statement about the importance of, you know, promoting the ways of peace within a family.
Right.
But Sarah didn't. So I guess Abraham dies. I don't know. Sarah didn't get. That's not the note she left on, unfortunately.
Right.
Testing. Yes. Okay. We got volume.
Okay. Good.
They're all awake now.
But yeah, you know, so it's interesting, because it is a very, and also another thing, I didn't know this until now, but Rashi says that the wife that Abraham marries, Keturah, that Keturah is Hagar, is Ishmael's mother. That after Sarah dies, yeah,
That it's just a different.
That it's a different name, and that the reason they call her Keturah, which is some kind of honorary name, is because she kept her womb closed for Abraham